Our first guest is supposed to be Miesha Johnston. She founded the Star Family. She founded the Star Family Contactee. These are groups for people who are experiencers, men, women, teens, children who are contactees or experiencers. They've experienced an abduction scenario by extraterrestrials. She started the first teen and children's group in the United States in 1994. She was the director of the UFO Contact Center International and Celestial Contacts of Nevada. Let's go ahead and bring her on the line. Miesha, is this you?
Hi, this is Miesha.
How are you? Welcome to AM 630 and the Fringe radio show.
Well, thank you. Now, I'm in a kind of an unstable phone, and if I could maybe have you call me back on my home phone, it will not call out.
Okay, no problem, Miesha. So if we have a problem, we can figure something out. I do have your information.
Okay, that's perfect. Yeah, so we'll just go for as long as it'll last here.
All right, sounds great.
Sometimes it's a good wave, and sometimes it's not.
No problem. Anyway, it's an honor to have you on the show tonight. And I just read a little bit of your bio. I've heard about you for such a long time. Anybody that studies the abduction phenomena and everything around it, surrounding it, your name definitely comes up. Why don't you give our listeners a little bit of the backstory? How did you kind of get to where you are today? I'd like to talk about your work and your organizations and people you help, but what kind of triggered all this off?
Okay, well, I can go into my childhood experiences and how it started. My very first experience was at age 3, and so being an experiencer myself in my life has brought me to my mission. But I can go into a little bit more on the experience themselves, if you want to hear that first.
Sure. Whatever you feel comfortable. Well, this is all about you.
It was like a little...
Are you there?
Being that I was in Idaho, okay. I don't altogether rule out that it wasn't a baby Bigfoot. There was 3 of them. They would come to visit me, and we actually flying. And I started that around 3 years old. I had those experiences, as well as I went through about 6 years old, and then at 6 years old, they kind of left, and another being came in, and this was what I would call kind of a tall, white gray. It was between a mantis and a gray, and that being was with me most of my all my teen life and a little of my adult life. So
you've been experiencing contact of some form with something, I guess we'll say possibly not of this world for quite some time.
Yes, since I was 3 years old. That's right.
Wow.
Within that time, I had other experiences as well as another type of gray, and then another type that was kind of a gray, and when I touched it, it felt like an alligator. And then later on, it went into, which I can probably get into later. I'm just kind of giving you a rundown of the beings, and then we'll tell you a little bit more about the experience. And then there was a reptilian type that were more of a service to self, I call them, the ones that seem to be working with another type of a gray, a tall gray, and they work with sections of our government, Black Ops, in the underground basis. And in order to pretty much survive that, I found this out later, that I was sent a protector, and he just happened to be another type of reptilian. So those, and then of course in the government abductions and stuff, those are the types that I've had contact with. That kind of gives you an idea of why I decided that in 1989 I founded the Star Family Contactee Group, Star Family Contactee Group, and that was actually in '89. I did the UFO Contact Center International, and then during those groups, people would come in and they were experiencers, and they didn't really have anyone else to talk to, and so too, I kept getting urges from this voice. This little voice in my head said, people need to have a group that they can go to, not these big groups, someplace so that it's personal. If you would like to start a group, this would be a good time. And of course, I'm slightly an introvert. Actually, I used to be a real big introvert, and so that was the last thing on my mind to do. So then, each meeting, more things, more little questions. It would be a good time, and it would be a good time, and they just kept gently trying to get me to wake up to what my mission is, basically. And then one night there was a gal who was just crying about her experience, and she just didn't know what to do, and she didn't understand it. She said, I don't know where to turn to. Most of the people in the group were actually had sightings, and that was about it. And they told me in a very firm voice this time, it is now time for you to start your support group. And so I stood up and I said, I'm starting a support group. Come and see me at the end of the night. And that's how it got started.
Wow. Are there, if I could ask you, the one thing which you have gone through, and a lot of other people have gone through, I think that, a lot of people, they have things happen to them, they experience things, and they have nowhere to turn to. And what you offer is kind of that one-on-one person. You offer, you let people know that, hey, this happens. You're not crazy. You've experienced something, and we like to talk about maybe some of the different experiences. But it gives people an outlet to go talk versus trying to, maybe go talk to somebody in their church organization or try to go to a police or some sort of local government. At least they have somewhere to turn to talk with someone that's experienced some of these things.
Well, that's right. I had mistakes to do that. Because with the church, well, right away you're possessed. You need to be have the demons ejected from you. So, and that's what I found out when I was trying to talk to people. I actually did the same thing. I talked to my minister, and my minister said, "You're possessed. Get over there at the altar, and let's save you," and that kind of thing. So I became from a very, very strict religious background. So, and then of course the police, they don't want this to happen, especially back when I was a child. That's just not things you do. So yes, it was really, really needed back then, and even of course now, that people need an outlet. They need other people to share that know what they know what they're going through. They know about the fears that they seem unfounded, but your fear of the dark, the fear of walking in a house by yourself, the natural fears that happen in all experiences, even though people will come out of their experience and realize, well, you know what, this was really quite a positive experience. They never did anything to harm me, but yet you still have those unknown experiences. And the unknown, about being the unknown is the big fearful thing. And fear is just false evidence appearing real. So we think from, our childhood is monsters in the closet, and yeah, ETs do come out of the closet. So it's really important to have a place for people to share. And in the groups, I will facilitate them, and that's why I call myself a facilitator. Sometimes people will need a one-on-one if they come in and they're in a trauma state, or they're real in fear, or even if they're ecstatically happy, they kind of need a one-on-one. But then, of course, the rest of the group will share their experience, confirming to this person and affirming to this person that what they're going through is not that weird.
Right.
So they think it is, and they think they're crazy. Most people usually think that they need to check themselves into a state hospital.
Interesting. When you started running into, at a very young age, when you started experiencing these, if I can use the term, non-human entities, did it scare you, Miesha? I mean, was it something that terrified you, or did you feel that this was a calling for you from it was something that you were supposed to do.
Actually, yes. I went the same route that everybody else does, fear first. Now, as a child, the little BGs, I called them, kind of a little hobbit, Bigfoot, a Littlefoot, didn't scare me. I had no fear whatsoever of them. At 6 years old, I've already been indoctrinated by my church, by my family, by the fear that is totally indoctrinates people in as they grow up. And so at 6 years old, I started having a few fears. You know, I didn't exactly know what was going on. I remembered seeing, because by then, you know, the ETs really, many of them, I'm not saying all, we have good and bad in all ETs, just as we have good and bad in all humans. But they would not want to frighten you, so they might come in a screen image, such as for me, they would be 3 deers standing outside my window. And when I woke up and saw those 3 deers, I felt very at ease and comfortable about it. But when I would have a little flashes of the memories that went on, being in the ship, maybe examinations, things like that, yeah, there were some fears going on there.
So did you experience? Now you talked about examinations. Do you consider these? And we can get into a little later on. You know, the difference between, you know, if we want to call it an extraterrestrial abduction, an alien abduction, and then a MILAB or a MELAB, however it's pronounced. Everyone uses a little different term.
Right.
Was your abduction or your experience? Was it kind of the typical one? Where there's medical, I guess what I would call medical experiments or tests performed? Was it typical as to what most people experience or we hear about what they experience?
Absolutely, yes, it was. My first really strong memory of the physical was in puberty, and that was my first, I would say, a memory of a gynecological examination. Being a virgin, not knowing anything at all, at 16, I had the experience. I actually woke up during the examination of what was going on, and I did start getting very freaked out because I didn't know what they were doing down there. So I was struggling or crying. And right then, the tall, willowy one that I call the tall gray, I call him the willowy one, leaned over my face, and looked in my eyes and said telepathically, "We're not going to harm you. This is necessary. You are being prepared for the hybrid program." So that was the first of many other examinations and procedures that went on. I don't believe they want to really have children remembering these kinds of things, so you really don't remember it until you're a little bit older. I did not remember that experience. In fact, I will tell you that it was sad because of my own background with religion and stuff. The memories I mistook that whole experience to be was that I was molested or attacked somehow or other by an unknown being. I didn't know what it was. I mean, in my mind, I thought it's a traveler, so it must be a truck driver because they're travelers. So in my mind, for years and years and years until I actually did regression and found that what it was, I thought I had been taken, kidnapped, raped, and put back in front of my front yard.
Wow.
I really did. It was, I asked them, why in the world did you allow me to remember it that way and think of it that way? Because I don't think it was their image. I think it was their image, but then my own distorted images of what was going on and everything. And they said, well, it was better for you to believe that that happened to you as another human than it would be for you to remember that you had extraterrestrial contact at that time.
Because that's at a young age. I mean, that's a lot to wrap your mind around.
It is a lot to wrap your mind around. And
and it's interesting too, Miesha. Talking about like you said, the experience. I sometimes wonder, and of course I'm not out ruling. There's plenty of children that sadly in this world are we're not talking about extraterrestrials doing it, human beings that just do horrendous things to young children, and they prey on the weak. But I sometimes do wonder when these things happen, especially when these kids have these experiences and they can't tie it to any individual. They can't say, well, something happened and it was Uncle Don or did something a little out of the ordinary or whatever. But there's a lot of these children that it seems later in life, and actually I know a couple of adults now that feel that something happened to them at a very young age, but they know something happened, but they don't remember the details, and they don't remember a person involved with it, but they remember some sort of experience.
Exactly. That's a perfect example of what happens to people. And we go ahead and put our story in it because we have to put some kind of sense to it, and it sure isn't going to be an ET, so people will, I find this all the time, that people come to my group and they think that they've been had some kind of a molestation. And when they start doing a lot of digging, they find out that quite possibly, it with no face and with no memory of the person, that it was some unknown being, whether it was an ET or, I'm sure it wasn't a ghost, but,
Well,
I don't think examinations.
And in today's society, if I'm not saying that everybody would feel that way, but just to talk about these things, to mention something like that, if you were to say that, hey, I had a child that felt that that experienced something, or even brought up an abduction scenario or an abduction examination, I mean, they'd in today's society, they'd lock you up and say, well, you did it for even bringing up something like that. But I do believe that it's something that cannot be discounted.
Yes, it is. And then also, you have to take into account of where my family came from. I'm from an MK Ultra family. My father was mind controlled. My father was he was a black magician. He was in a secret society where he was learning and being taught this black magic. And in fact, he came home to my mother. This was before there was any other children born. And he said that I had learned so much. The things that I can do, and the things that I can make happen, he said, and so he said, I want you to see something. So he put a cup in the middle of the table, and he moved it with his mind. And he said, but it comes with such a great, great price. So when you're in an MK Ultra situation and you have DID, dissociated disorder, there's lucid times where you really realize that some things are happening to you are very strange and odd and horrible, and then there's other times when you have no memory whatsoever of even having that, which goes within my experiences, where I have one period of 7 months and one period of 8 months, and then another period of a 2-year off and on phasey time. But it does happen, especially with the MK Ultra. And along with the MK Ultra, there is the ritualistic abuse that goes with it. Because I'm jumping a little around here. You're going to understand a little more if I tell you that at 3 years old, along with my ET experiences, which to me made me feel like I was loved, my father was having, because of mind control, and I know it was one of his identities, his alters that he was not aware of, was doing trauma-based mind control on me. And so how they do trauma-based is they usually do sexual, deviate, painful torture kind of thing in order to make me split, because they don't want a whole person. They want a split person so that they can make them into whatever they want, whatever Manchurian candidate, not that I am, by any means I've already, but in fact, Manchurian candidates is one of the things they will do, as well as people who are monarchs, or such as what went on with me, sex slavery and things like that. But they have to start it between 3 and 4 years old, and that's what I found in all of my groups. Because I also have, I have internet groups. And then I also have a MyLab MK Ultra, Super Soldier Ritualistic Abuse group as well. And in that group, we find that there's a correlation between the MK Ultra and UFO contact. They happen differently, and sometimes we are experiencers first, and then may remember our contact, and it helps us remember some of our childhood and ritual abuse things. And then sometimes we are, in my case, 3 years old, I was started with the project programming, and to start splitting me. And then later, it's like the ETs knew this and helped me. They were my support system. They were the system. They were the ones that I felt the most love for. And I can explain more of that in the aspect that I was from a family of 10. I was number 9, but 9 died, so I ended up 10.
Wow.
In these MK Ultra families, it's the most important, the first child and the last child, and they will sometimes have to just turn that child over completely. And in my case, that's what they had to do with number 10, and I ended up being number 10 because number 3. Not only did number 9 die, but 4 other children died of very strange things. And my father on his deathbed said he had to turn me over. He had to turn one child over to them because they would kill all the rest. And I could not put your mother through losing any more children. So subsequently, my mother never really got strongly attached to any children because I think she felt they were going to be taken away from her. And I had no way of proving that any outside source did these deaths, but it just seems very, very odd.
Interesting.
For many reasons. My parents did a lot of moving and traveling, and it's like they were on the run. They were trying to disappear a lot of the time.
Miesha, you want to take a phone call?
Sure.
Okay, hold on. Let's go ahead and get someone on the line. Caller, welcome to K-Talk. You're on with Miesha Johnston.
Hey, Pat and Miesha, how are you? This is Bill in New York.
Hey, Billy, how are you, my friend?
Doing great. Miesha, I have a question for you, but you just mentioned something, so I actually want to ask you a question related to what you just mentioned before I ask you the question I originally called for.
Okay.
In your family, is there anyone, is it a generational thing? Do you know that there's a connection? Do maybe your parents or grandparents that also, or other relatives that had these type of incidents as far as abductions or sightings?
Well, my father, yes. My father, a couple of my siblings, but certainly my father was very much so had his own experiences.
Do you think that they're watching a certain line of a lineage line of people, throughout the generations?
This is the sad thing about it. I am working really hard on finding my lineage. But my grandmother actually went to her grave without allowing anyone to know where her side of the family came from. It's somewhere in Germany and somewhere in French Canadian, but it's stopped, and we've not been able to find it. Now, imagine if I paid someone, some big bucks, I could probably find it, but other than a poem she wrote about flying, and she wasn't a fire, that's the only thing we have to link that she might have had experience. But we don't know. I do know that I have, French count and somewhere in the Nazi stuff, but, she just would not allow anybody to know. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers the question.
And my original question was, currently a friend and myself are sky watching. Now, I had 2 sightings back in the 90s, so I've always had this interest, and now I'm really getting involved in the whole process of, watching the skies and watching for unusual activity. Now, my question is, do you think that a person who had an experience, and by seeking it out, do you think that there's a draw there that you maybe eventually have contact with them? By seeking them out, do you think that they will eventually know that you're looking for them?
Hey, Bill, I think she dropped out on us real quick. Hopefully, let me see if I can can get her back. I heard a pop, and then you're still here, and you're still
I'm still here,
and you're on the air, and her line just went dead. Let me
try to call her back.
Yeah, let me see if we can do something here. Actually, I'm going to go to we've got about 3 minutes left, and then we're going to go to break, and I'll do it on break. And we'll get your questions asked. But I did just to change the subject a little bit. You, of course, are really into the sky watching stuff. And as I mentioned, we were chatting a little back and forth before. We need to do a show, and I've got a very good friend of mine, a close friend of mine, who is a professional photographer, and get you and ARW and some other people. I think we could easily do a whole 4-hour show talking about, as much as we hear about things, we people experience things, but you guys are taking the step to actually go out and grab photos and grab video.
Yeah, what's also important that we started out there, obviously from the bottom, the foundation. So we actually built this foundation, and we know what it takes to get all the kinks worked out. And, we already went through this process. So if anyone is out there that is willing to want to engage in this type of activity, and again, this is not just for looking for UFOs. It's very educational. You can go around with your family.
Sure.
You can look at the monitor.
Hang on one second. Let me see if we can pick Miesha back up. Miesha, is that you?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes. I'm afraid this phone may do that. Are we on the air?
We are still on the air, and Bill is still here.
Okay.
Miesha, did you catch any of the questions that I asked?
I didn't hear any of it. You just said I have another question.
Okay. Currently, a friend and I, we're doing sky watching. And back in the 90s, I had 2 sightings. One was actually I contacted Newfork and Peter Davenport, and he told me in an email that I wasn't the only one that's seen it. It was seen by many people from New York City up the Hudson River to Canada. Okay. Now, I'm very involved in the sky watching process. Like I said, my friend and I. And my question is, if you are purposely trying to seek them out, do you think that they will eventually know that you're trying to connect with them and maybe seek you out?
My opinion is that you would not be seeking them out if you didn't have some kind of connection to them.
Well, like I said, I had 2 sightings, and you know what? That's always been, put it this way, when I had the first sighting, it changed my whole aspect and my views of pretty much life. It was like an awakening for me. And then when I had the second one, and it was odd because I actually was out on a beach with a flashlight and trying to signal them, and all of a sudden the whole ocean lit up with different colors, and it was constant, and it lasted for 20 minutes. So, I've always wanted to, get involved in this because I do feel there's a connection, So that's why I asked you, do you think that if you have that connection and you're trying to seek them out, do you think that, you will make that contact eventually?
Oh, absolutely. I think you will. You just have to be diligent, and it may not be a ship coming and landing. It may be that you're going to have to start paying more attention to your dreams, your altered state. Maybe you're doing some dreaming where you feel like you're someplace else.
It's funny because when I go to sleep, before I go to bed, I meditate, and I try to take all the thoughts out of my mind, and I try to in myself, thinking to myself, like trying to make a connection that if you're, I'm being honest, if you're out there and you could hear me, I'm trying to communicate with you, like just trying to control, like to make those thoughts with a clear focus, and I try to do that. So I know what you're saying as far as the dreams also. So, yeah, I think that is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me ask you, Bill.
Let
me ask you, Bill. Now, I mean, Bill, you've obviously. I know that. I know that you dedicate a lot of your time to getting involved with radio programs. I know I can just tell you're very hungry for information. Did that start when you saw when you had the UFO sightings? Did that trigger something? And Miesha, my question to you is, when sometimes somebody sees something like that, I've seen in my lifetime, I've seen two what I would consider are not of this world craft. For me, it really didn't do nothing. I should say it didn't do nothing. It had my interest up. And I guess it did do something because we've been doing the show. We're going into 4 years doing this program. We feel it's a calling. Mm-hmm. But, Bill, did it kind of trigger something in you? And then maybe the second part of that question Miesha can answer is that more common than we realize?
Okay, you know what? When I had the first one, it was a boomerang-shaped craft with bluish-white orbs underneath it. Now, the first one, I say to myself, okay, it's 95, and this actually predates what happened in Phoenix, but that was a much larger craft. This was it looked smaller, much smaller. But I said to myself, you know what? Maybe that was a top-secret military craft. I just scratch it off maybe as a possibility as that being that. But when I had the second one, and when I did what I did, and tried to actually, like, contact them, and all of a sudden the ocean lit up, I'm saying to myself, well, you know what? I want answers. That's what it's all about for me. I want answers because, again, it changed my whole philosophy. And I don't want to, get into the religious aspects and everything, but I do believe that they exist. I think that people need to open their minds and be more aware of what's going on around them. And for me, yes, it's personal. I definitely would like to see something again because it's been about 15 years. So I am hungry for that also. But yes, I'm hungry for the information. I want to know the truth. Particularly, I'm tired of the manipulation and control and the lies that the media portrays and make it a mockery of the whole situation. I think that they know a lot more than we know. And I want to, I hope I'm alive to see the truth. That's what it comes down to.
Well, Bill, it is very interesting because this is something I am just about 100%. I feel this is right. That they, especially if you have a sighting and you have it twice, and you have one where you actually feel like they've contacted you back, they flashed you or something,
mm-hmm.
tipped their wing, tipped their ship or something and did the show for you. A lot of the time it's, okay, here we are you ready to wake up? We are here when you're ready to wake up. And I would say that same thing for Pat. The fact that you are now in this mission in this field, it could have been a little bit of a zing wake up for you as well.
Interesting.
I think Pat needs to set up some cameras.
Oh no, I do. We were when Miesha, when you dropped out there for a little bit. Again, Bill is working on a project diligently where he's got some sky cameras set up. Bill, I know we talked about doing a show on this, but are these sky watching cams? and I know you've gone through all the trials and tribulations with the software and everything. Is your intent is to leave these things on 24/7?
Well, I don't know so much about the daytime, and since I'm using my computer, I'm concerned about maybe like the overheating process. But if I can, yes, because I do have a digital camera that will run for the day that would be color. At night, it's black and white. So I have 5 cameras. So I designate them accordingly to what I'm going to use them for. But anything I capture is posted, like I told you, on YouTube. Or if it's really something that I find to be extraordinary, I have information to provide it to MUFON, etc. So I hope that someday that I'll be able to get something that's credible. Because another thing, too, everything that I record is watermarked on the DVR. So it could hold up in a courtroom because it's tamper-proof.
Right.
So that's important also to know.
Yeah, it's again, that's part of the whole thing is capturing the proof, and I would assume you agree, Miesha, is that again we hear about we kind of we hear about things, we hear about different people's experiences and stuff, but the more factual proof that we can get, the more pictures we can get that don't just, that the Bill is, I mean, I've seen a little bit of his video footage, and they're capturing a lot of very unique things.
Well,
we average, I'm sorry, Miesha, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that's a really wonderful start. I do Star Watches here. We did one last night. The only difference is, I feel that, and I was part of Stephen Greer's working group of CSETI, and so he trained us on the vectoring of the ship. So when I take a group out, we do a meditation. We sometimes even do toning, or we bring in some of the frequency music, and we vector in the ship. And just about 90% of the time we have some kind of sighting. We still want something more, and I'm telling them, give us something a little bit closer, please. But they do move around; they'll flash us and things like that. So have your intent in that, not just to see the UFO, but to communicate with the UFO and connect with them. And that's what CSETI is about: connecting with them and actually making contact.
So when you contact, or when you make contact, I mean, at the moment, are you able to make how do I put this? Intelligent contact? I mean, are you able to communicate, or is it more of just an acknowledgement of both presences?
Well, I will tell you that I definitely believe it's more of a communicate, because when I have the vector-hinged, we actually go out as a consciousness. We go out as a group consciousness out into space. We look for whatever works right for us. I lead them in a meditation with seeing a mothership, and we see many different types of beings, and then we invite them to come back to our planet and follow us back. So it's a little meditation procedure and everything. And once we do end up back in the circle, right, where our consciousness is now back, about 90% of the time, somebody either sees one in their mind, an ET, a form completely. We either have a sighting right away, we have somebody channeling, or singing and channeling, or we get some kind of contact communication. Last night, I was getting a galactic language and channeled that, and another woman received a galactic singing language and channeled that. That is happening more and more because ET is ready for us to make contact. So we have to make it in all aspects, and the mind, body, soul. We need to connect and hear what they're saying and learn how to communicate with them, or they're not gonna be here. They're not gonna come until we have raised our frequency, raised our consciousness to where they're at.
Miesha, do you think there's a misconception that the ETs are hostile? Because personally, I believe they are peaceful. I do not believe they're hostile, because you hear all these stories of people getting abducted and they go through horrific experiences, whether it's getting their memories back through regressive therapy. But what is your opinion? Do you think that the amount of species that are out there, the majority of them are sentient? They're peaceful?
I believe the majority are definitely sentient, and they don't absolutely have to look human to be a sentient. So, but yes, I believe there is a larger degree of them that are positive. And of course, because of the quarantine that we've had on this planet for centuries and centuries and centuries, and now it's lifted in 2012, basically, right around that time, it lifted so that there is not, it was like non-interference. You cannot assist. And now more and more people are getting contact with their family. They truly have a connection. They have love. Some of them are remembering and connecting with their spouses in another dimension. Since reincarnation to me does not exist as reincarnation, that it's incarnation. So we are living lives simultaneously. And some of those are space lives. I'm positive of that. I mean, I know for myself that I have a husband up there. I have children there. I also know that some of the people in my life in this time that have been in my life have also been in my lives in those other planets in space and time. So I know this is probably a lot for people to take, but we are starseeds that have been, since the beginning of time. Anybody who watches Ancient Aliens can affirm to that. We've been seeded, and not just by one planet, not just by what they want to call the Anunnaki, but by thousands, probably thousands, and throughout time too, not just at the beginning.
I agree. You know what's funny? Because we've been on this earth, when you think about civilization, people think of thousands of years. This earth has been here for millions of years. Who knows how many species have been on our planet?
Right.
This planet doesn't belong to us.
No.
It could be from other beings were here way before we were here.
Can I tell you something? During my experience in an underground base one time, I had a reptilian interaction, and I call them the Chikara. That was the name that came in my head. They're telepathic. At least the ones I was around were. And I was walking down a hall. Now, you're a little bit drugged and groggy feeling, but if you're there, you're going to behave, because all you got around you is military and uniforms and M16s, or you've got the aliens around you, so you really know after a while that you better behave. If you don't, you come back with big, huge bruises and marks and things like that, which explains a lot of bruises that people get, is because they were not behaving, basically. And I'm not saying what factions of the government do is good by any means, but you just learn how you better behave. So I was walking down the hall, and military men seemed to pass, and they would look at me, but they would never look at the reptilians. And I thought to myself, well, that's odd. Why don't I know he's there? I know he's walking beside me. I can't really move my head, but I can see what's in front of me, but I know he's there. And right then a voice came, because they know better, they must respect, and they know better than to look at us. I got that. You don't look at them in the eyes, first of all. And then later on that same experience, I asked another question. I thought, why are you doing this? Why are you coming to our planet? And they said, we are not the invaders. You are. We first.
Wow.
How long is this So Miesha. This is interaction between another species and humans. I mean, how long has this been going on forever?
For our world?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have different names for them. We have the Greek gods. We have the hobbits and the fairies and all of these. It's all folklore that has been going on for probably, for centuries. And I believe, yes, the ETs have been contacting for that long. You've probably heard about the Star Child skull?
Yes.
Okay, well, see how old that was. Well, that was definitely interaction with, an ET. That's more than likely. I think they're proving that child was more ET than it was human. It was a hybrid.
Miesha, I just got one last thing before I hang up. Mm-hmm. They obviously these aliens are being held against their will. Why do you think that their kind doesn't come to try to get them out?
I don't think that the ones I'm talking about were being held against their will. They it's more like they were there first. The government came in with their underground bases, and they're coexisting together because they've made agreements. There's all kinds of agreements that have been made. Some of it is, so, okay, you let us use your people, and we'll give you technology. But we'll give you the crap technology, because we know the technology that they have is far superior. Because that's why they abduct the experiencers. That's why our factions of our government, I'm going to say Black Ops, and that's what I'm going to call them all along. The Black Ops re-abduct the experiencers because they want to know what is the propulsion system. They want to know what's the technology that the people are seeing. They want to know what the medical technology. So the questions that we get asked when we're abducted, we are virtually put in rooms with definitely we're being watched. You got a two-way mirror, you're sure of, because there's always the darn window in there. And they ask us questions like propulsion, and they want to know what did you learn there, what did they tell you, where are they located, what's their planet, right down to this one particular time. I don't know what they were teaching me, but it had to do with a big screen, and there were some kind of controls and such like that. I think it had to do with teaching me. But the factions, the Black Ops wanted to know, so what is this? What did you find out? And it's like they have implants in us, and they can find out that we're abducted, and then they re-abduct us because they know we're abducted. And so most of my labs do have some kind of a government implant, a tracking device, and that's why most experiencers who do have my lab experience can absolutely guarantee that they'll come back from an experience and they'll remember they had an experience, and within that day or a few days after, along will come another not so pleasant military experience, or you'll get buzzed by the helicopters that they know. They just want you to know they know.
Interesting.
Did they ever drug you with a truth serum, or put you under hypnosis to try to see if they can get even more information out of you?
They use different types of drugs. They use ketamine. They use that's one of their favorite ones, because with ketamine they can pretty much make you do anything they want, and they use truth. They use it somewhat as a truth serum, but they use. I'm trying to think of the other one they use as a truth serum. But they do also. You've got psychics out there working with the Black Ops. You've got hypnotists, hypnotherapists working with him. So they use.
Hey guys, I got to interrupt you for a second. I got to take an NBC news break.
Okay.
Bill, I don't know if you want to stick around through the news and we can pick right back up. It's up to you.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll hang.
Okay.